Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers. James and Justin back again with another reaction video. And we're going to take a look at another Cogito video. We're going to look at Judaism Explained.
All right.
We've done almost zero stuff on Judaism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just to come to think of it, yeah.
I guess I'm glad we get to, add them in with us. And the
Shalom, L'chaim, what's up?
We don't know much, so we're going to learn a little bit, but maybe that's not true because we have a little bit of a Christian Judeo background, so there's some of that there that we know. So let's get into this. It's a little bit of a lengthy one, but
dig into it.
Judaism, at 4,000 years old, is one of the oldest monotheistic religions and the granddaddy of Christianity and Islam.
Do you know what the oldest monotheistic religion in the world is?
Oldest
Write in the comments if you know.
monotheistic religion would be Buddhism.
I don't think, no. I think it's Zoroastrianism, but I could be wrong. We'll have to do a Cogito video on that one.
But even though its teachings helped create the world's two most popular religions, many people don't know what Jews actually believe. What is the Torah? What's a covenant? And why don't people in the Middle East worship mermen anymore? Well, let's find out. Judaism developed here in the Eastern Mediterranean over the last 4,000-ish years. Today there are about 15 million Jews, making it the 10th most popular religion on earth. Right, let's jump straight into their beliefs. 1. The Tanakh. Tanakh is the Hebrew name for the Hebrew Bible, known to most English speakers as the Old Testament, but obviously they don't call it that since they don't recognize a New Testament. The Tanakh is actually a trilogy, and the word Tanakh is made up of the names of the three sections of the Hebrew Bible: T for Torah, N for Nevi'im, and K for Ketuvim. The first section, the Torah, is the most sacred book of the Jewish people. The Torah consists of the 5 books shown here, and is sometimes called the 5 books of Moses. Let's summarize this very long and very sacred book in a few paragraphs. Should be easy. In the beginning, God creates the world in 6 days, and then has a deserved rest on the 7th. Later on, God starts talking to a guy named Abraham the Hebrew. He tells Abraham to leave his home in Mesopotamia and go to a land called Canaan, which is here. God makes a deal or covenant with Abraham, promising,
I will make of thee a great nation,
and offers
the whole land of Canaan
to him and his descendants. To seal this special covenant, God said unto Abraham,
every man-child among you shall be circumcised.
I assume Abraham was like, we're going to do what now?
Ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you.
Circumcision was a symbol literally cut into the flesh of the Jewish people to show their covenant with God, and has been done by every Jewish male for thousands of years. The covenant is extremely important in Judaism. Later, Abraham's grandson, called Jacob, literally wrestles with God, or an angel of some sort, for an entire night. So from then...
Just before we keep going, I think it's hilarious. That's pretty hardcore. Circumcision back in the day, probably without all the stuff that we have today that could make that possible. That is hardcore that all the men, old men, would have gone through that. That's wild.
Well, they didn't do it when they were babies?
Well, I'm sure they did it when they were babies, but Abraham, he would have had to do it when he was older.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right, yeah.
Pretty hardcore.
And on, Jacob will be called Israel, one that struggles with God. Jacob/Israel has 12 sons, and their descendants will become known as the children of Israel, or Israelites, and give their name to the land of Canaan, now known as Israel. The children of Israel would be enslaved in Egypt, but then one of them, called Moses, would, under God's guidance, lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses and his people arrive at Mount Sinai, and here God gives Moses the entire Torah, which contains 613 mitzvah, or commandments, the most famous of which is the 10 Commandments, written on 2 stone tablets. This new covenant requires Jews to worship only this God, and to follow his commandments. In return, God will bless the Jewish people and make them a holy nation living in the Promised Land, which is Israel. The Israelites would eventually form a kingdom, and one of their kings, Solomon, builds a holy temple in Jerusalem, which houses the Ark of the Covenant and becomes the sacred heart of Jewish worship. Ironically enough, Solomon's kingdom would cut itself in two. Israel, populated by 10 tribes descended from the sons of Jacob in the north, and Judah, populated by the other 2 tribes, primarily the Judah in the south. In 722 BCE, the Assyrians conquered Israel, leaving Judah as the sole surviving Jewish kingdom, which is why this guy, Judah, a random son of Jacob, and not even the one with the dazzling coat of many colours, gave the religion of Judaism and the Jews their name. In 586 BCE, the Babylonians conquered Judah, demolished the Holy Temple, and sent the people into exile and slavery in Babylon. The destruction of the Holy Temple and the Babylonian exile is a heartbreaking historical event for Jewish people. But then, in 539 BCE, along came Cyrus with his big Persian army and cool hat. He wrecks the Babylonians, frees the Jews, and rebuilds the Holy Temple. And that concludes our retelling of the Tanakh. It is foundational to all Jewish belief, and my summary barely scratches the surface. So you can go read more by checking out the links in the description, or just waiting until I make a video just about that.
Yeah, like rich in history. Like, have you ever, like, I've tried to read the Old Testament before. I think I have read most of it, but man, it's so like a long.
Yeah, I always get to
Story.
Numbers or whatever book it is where it's like just endless genealogy. That's where I've tried it so many times. Like, I'm going to start the Bible from the beginning. And then you're like, I can do this. This is exciting. And then you get to like the Arafat begat Arafat or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And then you can't, I always just, it becomes unbearable. Or it's not even that. It'll be like long descriptions of how something was built. It'll be like, and then they had this many things of this
Yeah. There's
to build the temple.
So much of that. I guess they just wanted to like preserve the genealogies and the history and all that stuff. And I see the importance of that. It just doesn't make for the funnest read all the time. But the stories in between, I've always loved the Old Testament stories, man.
I'd love to get speak to somebody who has lived very ritualistically and very what's the word when somebody is like really into a religion, devout Jewish person or something, and and then get their hear the side of it, both what's cool, like, oh man, it's pretty cool when you go into the temple on this time of day and the sun's pooling in and you can hear the reciting of the Torah. It's so very awesome. But it would also be neat to see the side of it where they're like very long hours of whatever, something I don't even know what it would be, because I like to see both sides of anything.
Yeah.
What's the tough part here? What's the part that makes you question? What's the part that makes you believe? Let's hear both sides.
Well, it's
because
probably like the 600 plus rules, I think, that come within the Torah. And stuff
right,
like
yeah.
that.
What do you think of those rules? Are they all followable? And is that discussed, like how followable each rule is? It's funny. Like I was learning a little bit about it just from Ari Shafir, that comedian.
Yeah.
I watched his special, Jew, I think it's called, or something.
Yeah.
And but anyway, yeah. If you're Jewish, drop
please
some
tell
comments.
us. Yeah.
In 70
Or
CE, the
whatever.
Romans destroyed the Holy Temple again and sent the people into another exile. The Jews would move out across Europe, North Africa and the Middle East, forming a diaspora, which periodically suffered persecutions, pogroms and genocides from their neighbours. This 2,000-ish year exile is considered to have lasted up until 1947, with the partitioning of Palestine and the creation of the modern state of Israel in 1948. Now, that was a very brief summary of 2,000 years of very complex history, so please bear that in mind. 2. God. So Abraham lived in a world that believed in many, many gods. You had your Mardukes, your Nergals, you even had your Dagons. Everyone loves a Dagon. Look at him, fancy merman. But Abraham believed in one God, an eternal, all-powerful, all-knowing creator of the universe and the source of all morality. He has no children, he has no rivals, and he has no equals. This is known as monotheism, and Judaism would spread this concept across the ancient world, acting as the origin for both Christianity and Islam. Today, nearly everyone in this region follows a monotheistic religion, and merman worship has dropped significantly. The names of God used most in the Tanakh are Elohim and the Tetragrammaton, which is honestly one of the coolest words ever.
Yes.
Tetragrammaton is the letters YHWH. The actual pronunciation of YHWH was lost thousands of years ago. Today it is sometimes pronounced as Yahweh, but that's just one theory. Many Orthodox Jews will not actually say the name out loud and will say Hashem, the name, or Adonai, my Lord, instead. Many Orthodox Jews won't even write words like God down as a sign of respect, and will use something like G-D instead. The Jewish God also takes an active interest in human affairs and interacts with humans on earth. Humans can develop a personal relationship with this God. God granted humanity free will, and they, like Jacob, can wrestle with God and find and relate to God in their own personal way. 3. The world to come. The Hebrew Bible barely mentions heaven or hell. Heaven is kind of just a place where God lives. It does mention a place called Sheol, but it's kind of just a vague underworld where souls go after death. It doesn't give any details. But the Bible does make it certain that the soul lives on after you die. When Abraham dies, for example, the Bible says he breathed his last, dying at a good, ripe age, old and content, and he was gathered to his people. The Bible describes a bunch of different characters being gathered to their people, and sinners being cut off from their people. So while the body returns to the earth, the human soul goes somewhere to live with their ancestors. Jews accept that they don't know what the afterlife will be like, or what its rewards will be, but they think it will be based on the kind of life they lived on earth. So they try and follow God's path and commandments as closely as possible, because even if they don't know what rewards they'll receive in the afterlife, they know following God's commandments here on earth will make this world better. Many Jews try to act with Staaaaaaaaaay, or justice or charity.
It seems very vague when it said that he would be gathered with his people, because couldn't you just interpret that as he'll be buried with his people, or, you know, like after death?
Well, yeah, but you know, you're kind of limited. I find that such an impediment to getting the whole story is just time and constraint, you know?
Yeah.
There's, you probably, everything we even discuss on here is just like a partial truth of the whole thing.
Yeah.
There's probably some scholar that knows exactly,
Yeah.
you know, or would know about some dispute.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know if there's more to that.
What gathered to people? This is Abraham's bosom gathered up into Abraham. You know, what's that about? Remember, like you go up to Abraham's bosom.
But I don't know if that's even in the New Testament. I don't know.
Right, big disparity. Well, that's a huge. It's not even open that.
Yeah.
Staaaaaaaay comes from the Torah, which says,
Thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard, thou shalt leave them for the poor and the stranger.
today many Jews donate 10% of their income to the needy as part of Staaaaaaaay.
Bitcoin.
4. The Messiah. Many Jews today and in the past have hoped for the coming of the Mashiach, or Messiah, which is prophesied in the Tanakh. The Messiah is a Jewish leader that will bring about the Messianic era. They will rebuild the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, bring all the Jews back into the Promised Land, which will bring about the perfection of the world and an end to all hunger, war, and suffering. When the Messiah comes, every Jew who ever lived will be literally resurrected. They will then return to Jerusalem to be present when God creates a new heaven on earth. This is why Jewish law demands that Jews must be buried with any amputated limbs they lost in life. Jewish law also forbids cremation, all to keep the physical body intact for when it is resurrected by God after the arrival of the Messiah. For Jews, the Messiah has obviously not yet arrived because there is still suffering and inequality in the world. 5. The Talmud. So we already saw the Tanakh, but another book is also extremely important to the Jews, the Talmud. The Talmud is a collection of different books and is over 10 million words long and covers 38 volumes. It is a massive collection of commentary on the Torah and on itself about how the Torah and its commandments should be interpreted. It's filled with debate, legal interpretations, history, ethics, philosophy, and legends. Wow. Within a few lines, you can see rabbis that lived centuries apart debating a topic in the Talmud. It's pretty interesting. It provides the foundation for Jewish law and is a guidebook for Jewish life.
Wow,
look at the way it was written. Look at the way it was written. You know what I mean? With the like cascading lines and like almost like.
I don't know if it's all. It could just be that it was like it looked cool, but I don't know if every book is written like that. But man, all the stuff that was written just on the Torah there, like all that stuff. What did he say? It was like 10 million words or something like that. It's like ridiculous.
Okay,
like you get lost in that.
I feel like saying something, man, and I'm just going to take a risk here.
Okay.
Everybody forgive me. I am super duper flawed, and I'm probably projecting my own nonsense onto this, but this might be interesting to you.
Yeah.
There's something very obsessive compulsive disorder about this.
About what?
About every religion, despite nevertheless ones where it's just a never-ending discussion. You know what I mean? Like, and this idea of like I could say the same thing about certain things that'll be like, go say this mantra. How much you got to like say a mantra to yourself? Like, I've struggled with obsessive compulsive disorder, and it triggers something in me about that like. Strict religion. If I do this, I got to go say this 5 times, and if I do this, like hyper superstitious.
Yeah.
You know, but I know that there's way more to it. It's a community of people. It's people, you know, that love each other and have found a way of life.
Let me jump in here.
And a successful way of life.
Yeah. Let me jump in here because maybe they had ideas like different interpretations. Like say in the Torah there was like a law given, right? And it couldn't just be viewed as black and white. People had to be like, you know, like people might have had different interpretations of that. Like, no, that's not exactly what that law means. And so they had to like go through every little thing for every scenario and everything like that. That's probably like, let us know. But that I'm guessing that has something to do with it.
Yeah,
is like
without a doubt.
Going into all the details of it because it probably like bled into every facet of their lives.
Yeah. How do you ever make a rule without having to do that?
Look at our legal law books. They're ridiculous.
Right. But you're not arguing with me, right?
No.
That there's obsessive compulsive nature to being that way.
Yeah.
An individual could do it. I'm saying every system we have, if you trace down the thing, you end up in like floating in chaos. Like, oh shit, let's go back to like rules that we don't question, you know? But the sheer volume of it and the fact that some of these discussions, you know, span generations and stuff. And then, you know, being a Christian, going back to the Old Testament where it would, you know, they might come across something and be like, I'm pretty sure it's like wrong to, you know, like there's something shameful about being on your period or something like that. What the fuck? You know, it's got to juxtapose against modern times and what society and the world has become, right?
Yeah.
And so there's these, why would something be so challenging as a rule? There's like never-ending philosophical debate that you could have. And then I think about Howard Hughes. I think about him being like, gotta collect my pee jars and I can't go over there because that's where the germs are. And, you know, this shouldn't end with, that was wrong for him to even have brought up. I think that's silly, man. Like,
no, it's okay. It's okay to.
Does anyone feel that way?
It's part of your questions, and if you feel that way, it's a good. You can't ask a bad question.
In whatever religion you are that happens to be watching this, have you ever felt too superstitious? Have you ever felt too obsessive compulsive about it? Like you got to pray for forgiveness in a certain way too many times? You're not alone, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I grew up religious, and I'm saying I see the potential for obsessive compulsive. Now, I believe that there are probably people that are like hold things a little more loosely than I even have. That would probably snicker at my approach to it. You know, that are like, dude, I've been a pastor my whole life, and I hold this stuff looser than you do. You don't get, and maybe wouldn't even feel comfortable revealing that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if I tell people that I don't really believe it, then I'm going to lose my whole flock. But how can you not suffer as a human if you're trying to be actually by the rules? That is like lock, chain, stuck, gonna conflict with your natural way of being. It's like forcing you to be a certain way religiously.
Yeah.
That sounds. I'm not that way now, and despite the display I just showed you, I actually feel a little more grounded and calm and free and everything from not having to be that way. So I just want to hear people, you know, if anybody feels like they want to comment on that.
Yeah. Leave a comment.
So those are some of Judaism's beliefs. But Judaism is more than a religion. It's also a people, nation, culture and civilization, but not a race. There are black, Asian and white Jews. There are people who are born Jewish and people who convert to Judaism. There are atheist, agnostic and a buffet of different levels of religious Jews. According to Jewish law, a Jew is a child born of a Jewish mother, or a person who converts to Judaism. Some modern Jewish denominations also now accept descent through the father. Since the medieval period, there have been two major groups of Jewish people, Ashkenazi and Sephardi. The Ashkenazi are the Jewish community that developed in Central and Eastern Europe. They speak Yiddish, a combination of Hebrew and the languages of Central Europe. Yiddish words like bubkis, chutzpah, and klutz are familiar in English-speaking pop culture because most Jewish immigrants to the United States were Ashkenazi. The Sephardi Jews are descendants of the Jews of Spain and those who fled from Spain to other Mediterranean countries and North Africa. They have their own language, Ladino, a combination of Hebrew and Old Spanish, but unfortunately this language is under serious threat of extinction. There are also communities of Jews who do not fall into these two categories, such as the Jews of Iraq and Iran, Yemen, Ethiopia, China, and Georgia, along with many, many others. All these different groups make up the diverse range of Jewish belief and culture. What many Americans and Europeans think of as Jewish culture or Jewish food is really Ashkenazi culture and Central and Eastern European food adapted to Jewish kosher laws. An Ashkenazi will eat schmaltz herring, while a Sephardi will enjoy couscous. An Ashkenazi will celebrate with a glass of schnapps. A Sephardi will go for some arak. Ashkenazis call Saturday Shabbos, Sephardis call it Shabbat. Before the Second World War, about 9 million Jews lived in Europe, 5 million in the Americas, 800,000 in Asia, 600,000 in Africa. It was just above 15 million in total. About 6 million Jews were systematically murdered during the Shoah, the Hebrew term for the Holocaust. The immigration, expulsion, and extermination of Jews from their old heartlands during the 20th century has made North America and Israel home to the majority of modern Jews. Today there are many different denominations of Jews, ranging from Jewish atheists to Orthodox Jews. Orthodox Jews believe that the Torah is the direct word of God, and they strictly follow its words and commandments. The best known Orthodox Jews are the Hasidic Jews, due to their recognizable and distinct fashion, which has been appropriated by hipsters. There is also Reform, Conservative and Reconstructionist Judaism, who all cover a wide range of beliefs, from not believing in a personal or supernatural.
I'm curious about the aesthetic, the look. That's one thing I've always wondered about Jewish people who are like really practicing with the hats and the beards and the hair and stuff like the like. I was like, how did they arrive at that? Why was that what they came to? And are they allowed to change it? Are you guys are you allowed to modify that or turn it into something?
So funny. I was just talking about this yesterday with my wife. We were at a drive-thru and I noticed this family that looked like a happy, healthy, sane, normal family, but they were all wearing like muted colors. They're all wearing like khaki pants and like a super. They all shop at the Gap. Or something like that. And then one of them, one kid who was like off to the side was wearing like a vibrant colored shirt.
Yeah.
And I was like, people have uniforms and everything. And then it broke into a discussion about people that wear like different garments. You know what I mean? Like something that you'd find maybe in the Middle East garment. And I'm like, well, do you got the people there that wear like muted, plain, fit in with the other group of people? And then one guy with like a dazzling, look at him standing out. And all the opinions that go along with that. But when I think about the traditional garbs of these ascetic Jews, I'm like, it's usually pretty, like, I recognize the same thing. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
That's the idea of a uniform is it's not variation, If I went to a Catholic school, I'd be the guy with, like, a popped collar. So I'd have to do something because I'm that narcissistic, right? But, interesting discussion.
Let
more
us
opportunity
know.
for
I'd love
discussion
to know.
about that. Like,
more about
I've
that.
got like yarmulkes maybe could be different. Have like your own design on it or something.
Sure.
That you like. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're learning.
God and thinking ritual and ceremony have no place in the modern world, to believing in God and the Torah, but changing their interpretations as society evolves. Shabbat, or the Sabbath, or Saturday, is the seventh day of the Hebrew week and the most important day for Jews. Since God rested on the seventh day, Jews do the same. It is a day of physical and spiritual rejuvenation. Jewish law prohibits any work on Shabbat. Activities such as doing business, spending money, shopping, housework, driving, using electricity, or even using the phone are discouraged, while things like prayer or reading are encouraged. The laws of kosher regulate the Jewish diet. What is kosher? Well, according to the Torah and Jewish law, all vegetables, fruits, grains, and nuts are kosher. When it comes to meat, a kosher animal is one that both chews its cud and has a cloven hoof. Don't worry, I didn't know what cud was either. Cud is a bit of food that an animal chews and then swallows and then vomits back into their mouth and then chews it again, which is why some animals kind of just appear to be chewing all the time. Examples of kosher animals are cattle and sheep, while non-kosher animals include pigs, dogs, rabbits, and, well, humans actually. Kosher animals must also be killed in a certain way, called shahita. This method uses a trained professional with an incredibly sharp knife to deliver a quick death to the animal. Finally, all the blood must be drained from the animal because blood isn't kosher. Today, kosher food can be bought from kosher shops or recognized by special kosher symbols on products. All shellfish, birds of prey like eagles or owls, and fish without both fins and scales like sharks, whales and porpoises are not kosher. From the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE until today, the synagogue has been the centre of Jewish life and worship. In every synagogue you'll find a handwritten Torah scroll, which is read aloud during services. You'll also find a rabbi. A rabbi is a trained Jewish scholar and interpreter of Jewish.
That's cool. A handwritten scroll of the whole Torah. Every synagogue will have one.
That's
impressive. Cool and impressive. And yeah, like who does that? Like men
They do.
sitting and writing. I'm sure you have to like go to like school for that.
Yeah.
But cool.
Jewish law. They conduct many Jewish events such as circumcisions, bar and bat mitzvahs, weddings and funerals. While there, you may notice some people wearing a kippah, also known as a yarmulke, on their heads. Judaism originated in the Middle East, where a sign of respect to God is to cover one's head. Orthodox Jews believe that they are always in the presence of God, so they wear a kippah at all times, while more liberal Jews wear a kippah sometimes. You might also notice that many Orthodox Jews have long curly hair on the sides of their head. These are called peyot, and Orthodox Jews do not cut the hair because of a command in the Torah that says, "Ye shall not round the corner of your heads." So those are the basics of Judaism. It isn't even close to covering everything. I probably only covered about 1%. One video simply can't cover everything. Religions are too diverse, too deep, and mean too many different things to different people. But you can find all the sources used in the description.
Well, there you have it. The basics of Judaism brought to you by Cogito. They're a great channel. Go check them out. They've got lots of stuff on many religions and faiths and other subjects.
Don't you feel a thirst to be able to discuss some of these things in a certain way, though?
Yeah.
Like, think of all the different ways of being there are, right? Like somebody that comes from a different culture where, you know, like the guys that wear a turban on their head, or people that got to wear a yarmulke, or people that, you know, more Mennonites or something that dress a certain way.
Well, part of it made me feel it was like, oh man, I would not want to have to do some of that stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
what
like,
I'm saying.
But I'm sure if you come from that faith or you're like deeply in it, you might like you might not be able to imagine a world outside of it. You might be like, oh god.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's a difference between we do it because that's what we do and we're fine with it and we like it and we love it. There's a difference between that, but my mind won't let me bring to the surface the difference between feeling like you have to do something versus something that's, you know, when I see a Hindu temple, I want to go in. I want to go explore. I want to take part. Maybe not too much, but a little bit. Ooh, let me light this incense, you know. Yeah. And I might want to go into a mosque. But you got to be temple, then there's what you want to have happen versus the reality of the situation and being respectful towards people and the fact that they're like most of them are probably not taking it so lightly and like, no, I don't care about any of that other nonsense. This is the right thing. What are you talking about? Yeah. You have no place discussing this.
Even on that though, I guarantee you, there's probably different levels to it all over the board. Even that, like, look at how far spread wide Judaism is, and how many different types of people. Think about all the different types of, like, Christians there are.
Watch how blasphemous what I'm about to say is.
Don't do it.
No, I'm going to. Imagine a world where you could just freely be whatever you wanted. Like I could, you know, there was like a Hindu temple was like a Starbucks in a mall. I'm just going to go in and pray to this effigy real quick. Oh, check it out. The Jesus store's next door. You know, like do whatever the fuck you want. And there was no pressure to like pick a lane and be limited by that lane so that you can't even see properly. Yeah. You know, that's what I feel about so many of the things we talk about here. You know, this is just one of many. I'm not. If you watch any of our videos, you'll realize I'm not picking on anyone. This is the same pathology I bring to the table every episode.
Yeah. Well, it's like tomato. Some people. I was just talking with some guy online not like today about this, and some people are really comfortable with just like one path and like following that's like their way. But then you get people like us who are like diving in everything, just kind of like looking at stuff, and I think that's just kind of the way it is.
And for those that can read between the lines and see me exactly for who I am, they understand that I'm not quick to, if somebody says, hey man, I'm just okay with this, I don't not believe somebody saying that, but I'm not quick to be like, and I believe you because you said it.
Yes.
I don't just believe someone because they said. People say stuff all the time that they don't mean, and they haven't investigated why they really are the way they are. You know, it's a lifelong pursuit here, man. Anyway, it's way too deep for this.
This was a great video, guys. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share with a friend, and everybody, until next time,
Stay spiritual.